Hello, everyone. I'm Crystal.
And I'm Megalavoda.
Oh
JK.
no, no,
But if you know, you know.
this is Emily Barnes. She kidnapped me
No.
from she kidnapped me from another NFJ's channel, so I am today on this channel instead. Oh man, I've never been on someone else's channel without Megan. What do I do?
I know. Megan's here in spirit, though.
Yeah, please give me guidance. Anyways, so today Emily and I on Emily's channel will be discussing piercing through the idealized ENFP and INFJ relationship. What? It's not actually all roses or whatever, like all pretty and stuff all the time. So we want to discuss that.
Yeah, I think anybody that knows anything about like typology, Myers-Briggs, you're gonna see and which makes sense. People will be like, oh, what's the ideal relationship for an INFJ? Or what's the ideal relationship for an ENFP? And we're often together.
We really are.
We're gonna debunk that. But also, okay, spoiler alert, you can make it work, but it's gonna be a lot of
it's gonna be more work. Well, it's gonna be more work than any of you planned on, and we are going to talk about that today through our candid observations of the fellow INFJs and ENFPs in our lives.
Yes, and also just to clarify too, Crystal and I actually know each other in person because she came to Atlanta.
Yeah, I literally have met Emily in person.
Yes, so we have hung out in person.
Emily is very tall. All you people that don't think she is, no, she actually is. I was like, whoa! But yeah, so we are actually friends, and I actually have like a bunch of INFJs in my friends, and they're all different flavors, but I do see similarities in how I have to kind of get my introverted thinking in order, and they have to get their extroverted thinking in order. So we really need to talk about that for all those folks out there who are like, I thought ENFPs and INFJs were a good match, but I'm all sad about one or something because we keep kind of bumping heads. And I'm like, that's normal, but there's hope. But there's also you have to be realistic. So yeah,
I would say even more than the NE and the NI, I would say the sneaky little functions that really butt heads are FE and FI.
We have to talk about FE and FI. Ooh, those functions clashing have started probably wars, let's be honest.
Yes.
So Emily, would you like to start with, I guess, any anecdotal times or patterns you've seen of you loving ENFPs, but also there's that little prickly part where their FI can sometimes be a little much? Would you like to maybe talk about that? And don't worry, I will comment along the way in agreement, because I have started to be observant of how I prickle my little INFJ friends.
Well, I would say, so it's interesting because I have a lot of ENFPs in my life. It's interesting because I would say out of every personality type, well, maybe not every personality type, but it's definitely in the top 3 for what kind of guys tend to like me are ENFPs. And it's really interesting in that sense. And it can clash a lot with that, but I'll get into that later. I also have a lot of ENFP friends in general, guys and girls. And I've seen it so many times where, for example, we can talk about a party situation, which we are kind of talking about maybe doing this. I have hosted a party with an ENFP before. And
oh, wow.
The way I host a party versus the way she was hosting the party were very different. And I kind of want to, before I talk about how I hosted it and she hosted it, I want to hear what you would have done if you were to host a party with an INFJ or just in general.
Well, let's be honest. Actually, I've honestly never hosted a party with an INFJ, nor do I think I'm that good of a party host, to be honest, but I think it's easy to pretend you are, because as ENFPs, we can talk to anyone because we just assert ourselves with our extroverted thinking and introverted feeling, because who we just talk to. But I think in a party environment, I don't always think of the details of creating the ideal emotional experience for everyone there. So I'm not going to be the person who's necessarily paying attention to if we have enough drinks, or if those people over in the corner look really awkward and no one's talked to them for 20 minutes. I'm not paying attention to the vibe of the group necessarily. And like, this is from, I've like kind of hosted parties in college, but like not that many. It was just never really my thing to host the parties because I would like get anxiety thinking about how bad I am at like paying attention to that many people and their emotional needs. So I would imagine that if I had to team up with an INFJ, they just end up kind of like group project style doing all the work and then like feeling kind of bad about it, but like maybe being too nice to like tell me because at the same time I do a great job like keeping certain guests entertained. But I definitely feel like a lot of the times with FE, they'll be kind of like annoyed with me at like how inattentive to emotional detail I am in that group environment. Does that kind of maybe resonate with your experience?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I've had my fair share of hosting parties in general. Like in college, I was known for hosting parties, and I was kind of like, what's his name, Jay Gadsby.
You're
This
just
is how my style of hosting parties is. Like, I'm always concerned about like the emotional environment. That's my number one, and I will invite almost anybody to a party. Like, I'm not selective about, I mean, I am selective. I've gotten more selective over time. Correct me if I'm wrong. That is not really an ENFP approach. Would you just invite whomever to it?
I feel like for me, I would like invite people based on who I wanted to show up to like feel more popular. I don't know if that's also because my Enneagram is a 4 and like feeling special is like one of my trademark goals in life. But I definitely am the kind of person who like, I guess it is like I invite whomever, but it's very specific to who my introverted feeling feels compelled to. So I'll never do the thing where necessarily I like invite people I like hate or something, or people I like, or I don't know, like I'm not selective, but I don't think about like how the group is gonna cohesively go together. And I think even if an INFJ were to like invite whomever, they would still make sure subconsciously on some level that those people can fit together. But if you have people from like two different realms of your like life in general, it might be stressful. That's also because I know like a few INFJs who have hosted parties and are kind of weird about like friend mixing. Not that like they don't like them, but like, oh, will they get along? How's the experience going to be? Lots of INFJs have told me that they get anxiety thinking about their birthday party because if they have friends from different groups or different like interests in their lives, they're like, what if those people don't enjoy the party or something? Or, you know, so
Yes.
yeah, I would say I'm just like, you know what, I'll just invite you and you can make the choice to like make the most of this opportunity, but it's not my responsibility to make sure you have a good time. That's like how I am. I'm like really like laissez-faire about it.
Well, I've also noticed, like, at least with ENFPs that have hosted parties with me, or just I know, like, they're very focused on certain people. They're not
Oh
really.
yeah, for sure.
So for me, like, okay, I used to be, like, it took me a lot to get out of my shell and be able to be this way. But, like, I actually love when bringing all different types of people together, but I think it's because it's a muscle that I've used so much where I've had to do this. But my approach is basically I invite, and I've definitely gotten more selective over the years. Like, I wouldn't just invite anybody anymore. Because I used to do that in college, and there were a few people that it just kind of spoiled the mood there. But like for the most part, I will invite people, and my goal is to bring people together. So I'll be very strategic with my planning of the party and like come up with games, music, food, everything that I can think of. Especially I love themed parties because I feel like it's so easy to, like, get along with people, and I make people get together.
It feels like you have an agenda almost of like what the things are going to be. Like you have all these like stations or all these details. Like I think NFJs are actually great at event planning because they think of like all these details of like they envision the experience and how it plays out. And so they're like, oh, board games. Oh, this kind of like, so I'm bad at like making themed parties. I'm just like, how does one follow a theme? Like that's just something stressful for me.
Well,
and I think it's
love
really cute.
like group like games. Anybody that has ever been to a party of mine, I play games like What Do You Meme, Cards Against Humanity, which those are like kind of more board game type. Well, those are card games. But I also played this game called Paranoia. And
I've heard of it, yeah.
Yeah, basically you whisper in someone's ear, and then you flip a coin, and you have to like If it's heads, you have to reveal the question. If it's tails, you do not reveal the question. And that's like the thing. Yeah, I like that kind of stuff. But I would say where I'm more like Jay Gatsby is like, I will literally have all these people, I'll invite everybody there, and it's like, okay, I have my little petri dish of people, like all of this little petri dish. Now I'm gonna go head out and I'm gonna go hang out with my cat in my room.
Oh my god, it's hilarious. I think that I've been guilty for sure of like leaving people out, because I make friends in a group by talking to the individuals who have their introverted feeling. We have an exchange. I bond with people more in that capacity. So my attention will feel very scattered because I want to give everyone special attention, but who I vibe with feels out of my control at times. So NFJs will be like, why are you just like in the corner with your friends or something? And that's why it's like, because like if I do that at parties where I'm not the host, but if it's like we're at a party and I am the host and my obligation is to make sure everyone feels welcome, I do it very like mechanically. I'm like, hey, how are you? Okay, bye. And it's just like I don't know how to like get everyone on the same page because I'm so aware of how different everyone's page is. So I feel like that manifests in me looking like I'm playing favorites when really I'm just buying time before I have to like move on and go and make it balance with someone else. So that's one thing. And like I really don't like board games or group games either. I tend to zone out and feel very intimidated by all the energies for me. So I've been told I'm kind of like, not like a drag, because I'm never like grumpy necessarily, but like I just don't participate in games sometimes because it's just too much for me and I don't like competitive stuff like that. So I'm not really that fun of a party host. Like this year when I had my birthday party, it was just me hosting, but like I literally made my friends make a presentation about me in the other room, and that was how they bonded.
Like I saw like little clips.
Yeah, and that was how they bonded. And then it was funny because it was like a bunch of FJs, and they were all like brainstorming. And then like the one NFP in the corner was like, huh. It was so funny. But yeah, like I was like, okay, you guys are all bonding around like the FI, the introverted feeling of me. It's not because I'm the one making you guys kind of talk about like things. Like it was like I specifically structured it like in a way where like we all made a cheese board together. We all went like rollerblading together. We all did this presentation thing. We all ate tacos and just sat around and got to know each other. But like I was definitely hands off, like, okay, everyone's here for me. I'm taking advantage of that. But if it was like just a regular party when it wasn't my birthday and I get to be the center of the universe, I would have so much anxiety personally. And I think it's because I'm so aware of like, because I've been friends with like FJs for a long time, so I've heard the same kind of recurring criticism of like I can like get a little too absorbed in my own world, which not in a bad way, but just in a I don't really know how to almost like make it objective to others and like kind of take care of everyone. So I just would rather not. And I feel like I get annoyed when I see ENFPs who think they're good at hosting parties when really a lot of the labor gets left to, especially if you're co-hosting with an NFJ. They pay attention to all the things that you don't, so you don't appreciate them enough too. So I'm just like, it's a lot.
Yeah, also I think with FI, from what I've noticed, you know, from experience, I feel like, and this doesn't always happen, but I think that like from what I've seen, ENFPs can get like in their feelings about certain people, like at a party.
Oh, for sure.
And they make it very and it's not even always like directed towards them, but they'll take it very personally. Like if off, like with an individual person, they'll kind of, I don't know. Do you know?
I know exactly what you mean. Like if I'm upset at a boy because he either didn't come or came, can't do anything right either way, my mood will just tank. And it's funny because I actually have an INFJ friend who has a friend who does the same thing as me, where in a group they cannot be trusted because the minute their emotional homeostasis is thrown off, like that's it. They can't put on a happy face and like adjust properly for the group's sake. And like some F users will be like, trying to make them feel better, they'll be like, oh, but like there's so many other people here that want to like support you, why can't you focus on them? And it's like, but I have more FI about that one person. And it's just like, oh my god, like it must be so stressful to like damage control for an NFJ if your NFP friend begins to stink because you feel bad, I want to comfort them, but you still have all this responsibility that you took on when you hosted the party. So yeah, that's probably a whole pickle, you know.
That has actually happened to me a few times,
Do
actually.
I hope you feel seen. I'm literally dragging my own lot right now, but like, yeah, these are just problems I've like kind of come to accept. Like, it doesn't bruise my ego anymore because I have like other strengths, but party hosting, not one of them.
I
It's
would
like,
also
yeah.
go ahead. Sorry. Go
Oh
ahead.
no, I was done.
Well, okay. Also, I would say where I would call myself out, or just like NFJs in general, is I think I've at least seen this with me. I'm so oriented towards the group and like how the group is, and like I'll be that friend, and I have been that friend to like comfort that NFP, especially ENFPs.
Hello, yes.
I definitely am that person, but I'm also a person at a party. Again, I don't play favorites with people typically, unless they catch me like when I'm in my room by myself. That's when people are gonna get like maybe one-on-one time with me, like a more like real one-on-one time. Other than that, I'm gonna really try to have everybody have a good time. And I think from my experience, this grates on ENFP's nerves, especially if they feel like, wait a second, Emily, I'm one of your good friends. Why are you like focusing on these other people when you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I think it can be that way. If I was co-hosting with you, of course I wouldn't expect you to pay attention to me, but if I was going through a hard time, I will say that even though I just dragged ENFPs about what we shouldn't do, it is my impulse that when I'm going through a hard time, I hate feeling like the NFJ friend is like judging me instead of being there for me. Like, it's already enough that like I can be grateful that they're keeping the party going because I will be aware that I am not keeping it going anyway. But like, and I feel like they're almost like avoiding me because I radiate such negativity, I'll be really hurt because they'll be so like, okay, I don't want to like play favorites right now because I have so much other stuff to do. It's like, but if you played favorites for 5 minutes, I might be better. Or, you know, it's just like this idea of like, they'll cut their losses too much compared to me where I don't cut my losses enough. But then it's like such polarization, you know?
Yes. And that's where it's like, I mean, we were kind of talking about this before like the live stream started. I mean, not live stream, but before the started. Like how, I mean, we obviously both agree that ENFPs and INFJs are not as great of a fit, like naturally as you
Naturally, yeah.
like I think
Yeah.
at first, and I was kind of describing this like notion. It's almost how in Socionics, which doesn't always correlate over, but let's pretend it does. My in Socionics, I'm an IEI, and my supervisor, I mean not supervisor, but my conflictor is an ESTJ. And with your conflictor, and for you, that would be like
ISTP.
ISTP and Myers-Briggs, or like ISTJ and
They're ISTJ because they switched the P and J for the introverted people in Socionics. But Myers-Briggs ISTP, yes.
Yeah, Myers-Briggs ISTP. So at first you may look at that like conflictor relationship as being someone, because like from a distance they seem like, oh wow, they have like a lot of qualities that I admire and I would love. Like ESTJs can be really good leaders in a sense, and like they have like a good organization and management. But then when you get close to your conflictor, you realize and it goes downhill like
you're like, wait, like the illusion is pierced through. You're like, what? You're actually so, yeah, like I feel like maybe ESTJs like kind of disregard like the group dynamics because they just want to do what they think is best as opposed to actually tuning into the group way. And because they are a judger first because they judge and you lead with a perceiving function, they'll be judging and your perceiving will be like squashed already, and so it's just like, oh, big mess. For me it's an equivalent with ISTP. Their introverted thinking will be too busy like confused by my introverted feeling and trying to like impose it, and their extroverted sensing will not pick up the world I'm living in and be kind of like, are you like crazy or something? Like they won't even say you're crazy, they'll be like not sure, and that makes me feel worse. And so yeah, I have noticed that because, yeah, like you said, like because NFJs and STPs share the same functions and I share the same functions as an STJ, I can be as hardcore as an STJ. Like we actually get along pretty well, I'd say, me and STJs. Like they can be really fun and they can be really efficient. That's really great. But like sometimes they'll be like efficient at the cost of the emotional environment, or like brainstorming at the cost of like what the point or the purpose is, to where it's exhausting to try and organize all of that. So I also agree that there's like kind of like you kind of like have the illusion pierced. And I think that, you know, because all NFs kind of look like each other to an extent, because we all have the same goals of an ideal world in which our intuition and feeling is permissible, but our philosophy on how to get there is completely opposite. So it's almost like we're teased with this idea that like we could be so similar and great, but then when you get down to it, it's like, oh, well, inside of me lives an STJ that's gonna like completely bash all your NFJ-ness, and inside of you lives an STP who's gonna tell my NFP-ness to be, you know, more realistic or something. So it's like that dynamic, especially I think when NFPs and NFJs fight, can just, ooh, it's really ugly, right?
Well, exactly. And I would say like that's exactly well put, because it's like what you just said, having an almost an ESTJ inside of you, whereas I have like an INFp inside of me.
It's like, oh,
Like basically with the conflictor relationship, especially, like you have their strength, like that you have all of their, you're better at everything that they're weak at, and vice versa.
mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
but it's the same flavor.
value too. Oh,
Yeah, but it's the same flavor though, of like, oh, all these functions. Because when an ESTJ is being like really whiny and like selfish, I know how to get through to them and understand their point of view, while also, you know, not seeming as, you know, kind of doubling down on my like way of seeing it. But if you are close to me as an NFJ who sees the opposite, and you like listen to how I process, after a while you'll be kind of like maybe turned off, because it's like, oh, this person's not really as generous as me or something. And again, we can be opposite or generous in opposite ways, but yeah, there is a point where you're like, this is a very rigid way of thinking. What? And it's because it's not obvious at the from the get-go. Like it's not like, it's like very like surface level, we seem similar, and then you're like, oh, wait a minute, right? So yeah, like I've been known to be able to be as efficient as an ESTJ. Like I was a political reporter. People can say that I can be very thinky and know how to like completely stonewall people if I need to, which is like the ESTJ stereotype. While an NFJ can like nitpick and defeat like any reality or something that doesn't quite make sense, and be very like able to pick apart arguments, and like be really able to like be like, that's like kind of like it convey logic and like make someone feel really bad. It's funny.
well, and sometimes like kind of cold and unemotional too. That's something I've been called, like, you know, by ENFPs, like when they have seen like this like TI side of me.
Yeah, you're like, what? You're like, I don't actually buy this. I'm not sure. Like, I'm not gonna go with this. And they're like, you're being so unsympathetic. But you know, because like TI feels so unsympathetic to FI, because it's like that doesn't make sense to have. So I don't get it, and I'm not gonna pretend I do. It's like, oh, like, you know. So yeah.
Well, we were kind of talking about this before, but I really see like the ENFP INFJ relationship and vice versa as like a moth to a flame, almost like,
oh, a moth to a flame. Yes, it's so true.
It's like, I mean, seriously, because even more than like, say, like I would be like interested in ESTJ, not again romantically, but I would see an ESTJ as, oh, I can appreciate them, and then get closer and be like, but with an ENFP, it's like we actually naturally, I would feel like are attracted to each other, not just romantically, but friends wise. Like,
yeah, I have so many INFJ friends.
I would say you're even more attracted to like an ENF, like you would be even more attracted to like an INFJ versus an ENFJ.
I would say, yeah, I've had way more INFJ friends than ENFJ friends. Like ENFJs, I feel like I compete with them to take up the space, but INFJs, they'll be so observant, but I'm like, wait, you're so insightful though. Let me be your friend and pull you, right? Because it's like, also our NE and NI can like brainstorm really well together, and then FE and FI starts clashing. It's like, oh, okay.
And I've seen that like firsthand with like, I've had my fair share of ENFP friends, like, and it's just something that I always see. Like,
yeah, I feel like INFJs are easier to I would say they at least like get my jokes faster, and like they can follow along my rambling a little bit better than an ENFJ who'll just be like, I need to go like take care of the group now, bye. And like INFJs will be like, let's theorize about how to like take care of the group. Wait, why aren't you doing any of that? Wait, what? Like it's like really cute, but I do think, yeah, like and I think that what also happens is our blind spots grate on each other. Like I don't have much introverted thinking, you don't have much extroverted thinking. And so what I need from people is I need them to assert their boundaries. If I'm talking too much, you need to basically convey and extrovert your thought process and be like, hey, like, I think this is imbalanced, and I won't take offense, but that is something that's not an INFJ's like strength naturally. And on the other hand, INFJs want like an ENFP to have like the introverted thinking, to kind of understand where they're coming from. If like you are talking too much, maybe try and anticipate that by logically understanding how like group dynamics and like interpersonal relationships thrive. Like, you know, because I think also what I will say for the ENFPs watching this who are like, what are you talking about? Introverted thinking is like this conviction. This is how I interpret it. It's like this conviction. It's like this logical archive of your conclusions and convictions. And for, you know, an FJ, they don't have much extrovert thinking to set their boundaries, but they do have introverted thinking about how relationships should go. So they're very emotionally efficient in knowing, oh, like if I forgive people easily, I can continue to have the emotional benefits of that relationship. And that is like a core belief they've seen work in execution. So they're like, I'm going to abide by this principle. So they're not going off, oh, I'm just going to let this person walk over me because I love them. It's more like, I've seen that even if I'm uncomfortable, if I power through it, good things happen because that relationship can continue, and then we can like work along and hopefully like along the way. Like they're not really like INFJs aren't like literally pushovers. They just aren't gonna like verbally convey that, and they assume everyone has this logical archive of like they thought about what kind of behavior they want to do in the world, and that's why they do it. But we don't work like that. We just go like, oh yeah, like I'm just gonna keep talking until someone tells me to stop, because that's the point at which I will have to hear it extroverted. Whereas we don't realize that like we could have maybe like seen that coming or something, because we know that person isn't good at setting boundaries. What do you think of that?
No, I totally agree with that. Let me think about this. I would say like, which, okay, this is like, never mind. I'm not gonna get into this right now because I just think it's so interesting. But like when I'm thinking about, like when I'm talking to someone, I find that with ENFPs, they do get offended by almost this lack of communication with me. Like
communicating, like say your boundaries, like what I was talking about earlier. Okay.
I found that with, you know, I was roommates with, and Crystal actually knows this person as well.
Yay.
She's met her. But I was roommates with this ENFP girl, and we used to be really good friends, and there were other factors as well with this. It wasn't just personality wise, we got along pretty well, but there were other things as well. But I would say one of the biggest demises of the friendship, besides like the things that we can't control, you know, that may be going on in each other's lives that are external or like mentally related, I would say I have a tendency of like not always conveying how I feel about a situation. And I will bite my tongue, like you said, about, and it's not even just about like, oh, this, you know, he's talking, you know, more than I want. That's not really the case. It's more of like, okay, this ENFP is being kind of selfish. This is like,
yeah.
I will see, I mean, I have a bad tendency, and I'm trying to correct it, of seeing FI as selfish.
Yeah. Oh yeah, wait. I just wanted to add that when I was saying like this ENFP is talking too much, I was trying to say like to translate the selfish thing, it's like, oh, it's selfish to like always talk so much without checking in to see if the person even wants to keep talking about it or keep like hearing it, right? It's like that, it's like that behavior of like negligence as opposed to someone who just talks a lot. So that's what I was trying to say.
I would say that's so true. You're not like, maybe the ENFP isn't as much in the INFJ's mind, maybe not valuing their time.
Yeah, because like
INFJ feels like they've already talked about that.
Yeah. Like, it's like funny, yeah. Because an ENFJ might talk a lot as well, but it's different because their FE will try to like check like read the room, I think is what ENFPs are told they're not that great at sometimes. I didn't even know what that really meant when people were like, yo, you should read the room better. I'm like, what do you mean? What room? Like, but yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Like,
I use that term all the time, actually.
I am so FE. I'm just like, I read the room and I can't tell if that person's just tired or actually annoyed at me. And they're like, why don't you ask? I'm like, that's so much effort. Because I'm always afraid they're tired or like annoyed at me.
Yeah,
No.
it definitely, so for me, I very rarely get upset, like mad. I mean, I'll cry. Like, I definitely cry, and that's how I show frustration a lot. But I very rarely get mad, like actually legitimately mad. But I have had experiences where ENFPs have pushed me to actually getting mad, like actually mad. And I think,
Wait, can you give an example? Or maybe that might be hard, but like if possible, let me know if you can, of like, because you were just talking about times the ENFP seemed selfish and that you don't want to think FI is necessarily selfish. I'm totally down to like talk about that actually, but like, do you have any maybe innocuous examples of just any ENFP being like selfish or something?
well, I will say this, and I didn't get mad from the situation. I would say I don't really necessarily want to talk about those. I mean, just
Mhm.
because out of respect for, it was my ex roommate that like
Okay.
of, I got like actually mad for.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
Where it wasn't like, I mean, obviously it wasn't physical or something like that, but I snapped. I
You
was
were
like,
like, "Ah," yeah.
no, we're not gonna do this anymore.
Wait, maybe I can give examples of times I know I was selfish, but in a general way, not like in a fight, because I can't think of like for example, the talking too much thing is an example. But there's been other times where like if you're going through a hard time, but I'm going through a hard time too, I will not stop going through a hard time to help you with your hard time. And I know it's like to Effie, it's like, well, we don't want you to like put your feelings aside that much, but the difference is that for me with I won't even have the energy to like even talk about it because I'll like kind of need it fixed before I can even think about someone else's problems because I get so intensely focused on someone's FI and fixing it. So I've been kind of called selfish before because if FE doesn't understand what I'm thinking or what my process is, they'll think like, you just keep abandoning me like when you're sad, even if I'm going through something too. And I feel like I'm always like trying to be there for you when you're sad, even if I'm sad too. So like what's going on? And I've gotten that kind of criticism from like so many NFJs I've been close to before. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
No, I actually, okay, I'll go into this example, but the main example I'm going to use is more of a dating example because it's not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily, but it really is very similar. So, to be very like vague about this, just because, I do, even though we're not like close anymore, I do value this person. Like it was, she is still like someone that from a arm's length, I do
Mm-hmm.
value. She We were at a concert and she did like get tickets for this concert. It was like for my birthday, which was very sweet. um we were at this concert having a really great time and it was like one of my favorite bands, and then afterwards we were like going out, and then she sees this girl who just stopped being her friend, and they had a lot of history. There was a lot of like different things of like all this stuff, but like this other girl who was like friends with that girl but not friends with her, um like walked by her in a kind of bitchy way, like kind of did like this little, like almost like just kind of walking by her to walk
Like,
by
ah,
her.
excuse
And she
me.
got, well, let's just say this. I was saying, okay, there's a chance that these people are going to be out tonight because that these people live here. So let's avoid going to those places. But we actually did the opposite, where we went to a place where he was pretty much going to be there. And I even said that. I was like, we probably don't want to hang around here if you don't want to see this. But really, she did
Oh
want to.
my god, I relate. I relate.
She did want to see her, but she had a lot of FI ties to this person. Like, it was like one of her good friends. And when she saw that other person, she was like, who was kind of like, in her eyes, like a weasel. And she acted like whatever, and she never even like heard from the girl she was actually friends with. She got very much in her emotions, and basically the night was spoiled from then on.
Mm-hmm.
So we were having
Yeah.
a good time up until that very moment. And I like talked with her. I was like, this doesn't matter. Like, I'm here, I'm your friend. Like, let's try to make it better. And I was like trying to keep her out, like trying to help her with the situation. But I got to a point where she wasn't enjoying herself. All she could think about was this girl and the situation. And I got a little bit like mad because I was like, okay, like, who am I then? Like,
Yeah, and also you were the one that warned her, right, to like
yeah,
not be in that situation.
not be like, I specifically tried to get her out of that situation.
Because you saw
Like,
it coming. You were
look,
like,
this is what's gonna
yo,
happen. Yeah, I
what
literally
do
was
you
like,
think was gonna happen? Yeah.
I mean, I had a feeling, I know these kind of situations. And then we ended up having to go back to where we were staying. And then we got, like, I was listening to her, but the other factor was she doesn't remember her, like, she was drinking at the time. So she doesn't remember telling me this super long story about this girl and like every detail because she was like, she wasn't really like 100% there. And then the next morning, she acted like I had never talked to her about this at all and didn't care. And then we like talked more, and I was like, okay, literally, I've heard this for like hours now. And it was like a situation where I felt very much like, I don't know, like I just felt like, okay, seriously, we were having such a good time. We had such a good weekend, and then it was just spoiled and it turned into such a sour time.
Yeah, it's so funny. Oh my god, the
I
story's so
said,
familiar.
like, I
Yeah.
snapped and I was like, I literally went like this to her. I was like, we're not going to talk about this anymore. And like, I got really
Mm.
I wanted to be alone. I wanted to get out of there because I just felt so emotionally drained by that situation because it was just like hours, literally 8 hours. And anything I tried to do, it was like I wasn't being a good enough friend to her. Like,
Hmm.
basically,
Yeah.
that was kind of the situation.
Yeah, no, I totally empathize with that, which is funny because I think any ENFP that you were friends with would have also saw it from your point of view. But in the moment, they would, if they were the ENFP in the situation, it would have been impossible for them to, take on that perspective. It's almost like we just disassociate and become this like lump of just self-loathing. And NFJs are like, I want to help, but I don't understand because like, yeah, and I will say that, okay, so like if I were in a situation with like either an FP or TJ or anyone with introverted feeling, I would have like, I think that the way I deal with those kinds of things where the night's about to be ruined and like this person is like kind of in a hole like that, I would have like been blunt before I did the emotional labor of like, okay, but like we should only talk about this for this long because I like, and it's like I would have verbally been like, I tried to warn you and this still happened and I
I
do
did.
care about.
I did say
Yeah,
that.
exactly. So I would have said that I tried to warn you because you didn't take my advice. I'm going to put up the boundary that I'll talk about it with you for like this long because and I would say the FI of like I do relate to wanting to like, because I would have perceived with FI that like even though you knew it was dangerous, you still wanted to do it anyway because you miss this person. I relate to
Yes,
that
and that's
feeling.
exactly, that was my argument to her. Like, I literally was like, I know you value this person and they mean so much to you. And I did go, but so I did that, but I also
Mhm.
did the TI thing. And I like broke down exactly why it was like, what I should have done in retrospect
Mhm.
is, okay, it is frustrating to like think that you're talking to someone, but you can't really, I mean, when someone's under the influence of like alcohol or something, you can't necessarily blame that for sure. Like, you don't,
Mhm.
like, they can't, that's kind of out of their control. But then when, they are like not drinking or whatever, and they're like, sober and like coherent, you can't, I should have just listened to her. What I should have done is I should have just listened to her for like set the boundary of setting a time period, a timeline.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. You
Be
finished
like,
my thought
okay,
for me.
and then after this, we're gonna do this. But what I did was I played devil's advocate, which I tend to do, and that's not necessarily the best.
Wait, are you saying devil's advocate with yourself or in the real interaction with like this person?
So I obviously empathized with her and sympathized. Like, I, definitely could see her perspective. But I also played devil's advocate in the sense of like being like, yeah, you did this to yourself in a sense. And like, I shouldn't have done that. But
Yeah.
at the same time, that's kind of like, I don't want to use that as like a really good example because there are other factors involved that are not personality related with this person.
Yeah. I think, well, what I will say though is let's like focus on the boundary thing where TE users are like aware of like I can only take like maybe like 3 hours of this more and that's it. And so I'll tell this person I'm all for listening to you, but I also want you to value that I am here right now. And so if it's okay with you, I would rather we only talk about this for blah 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 more time. What are your thoughts? And it like forces like for me when I hear that kind of thing because I've had like NTJ female friends do this to me and force me back into like, oh, this person has like feelings too. And I know it's like weird to think that we like forget that without someone saying it, but for someone to say give it to me straight like that and say the full length and depth of that, I'm like, oh, okay. So I will only talk about for this long because I'll be cognizant of and grateful that they're telling me how much energy they have because otherwise I just keep using it more and more. And even if I'm aware that like they must be tired, I like won't feel like I can stop. And it sounds really bad, but basically it's like the cap to introverted feelings, extroverted thinking, where someone's like, I'm extroverting that this is not going to be okay for me in like maybe like 30 more minutes or something. But like I think that it's hard for like an NFJ because they're not even thinking about their own limits. They're just trying to like take whatever time they want to care for the person and like fix them without losing their thinking of like, well, here's my opinion, but like I don't know how to say it without like being too cutting. And an extroverted thinker would be like able to kind of be like, I empathize with you, here's my boundary, and like not like almost need you to like logically agree with them. It's just this is what it is or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that
So
makes
yeah.
sense. Well, yeah, I didn't set a boundary. We actually talked about this for like, I want to say 8 hours. So by the end of it, as you can imagine, if you're in the situation at all, so like we woke up the next day and it was basically like for hours of talking about this, like at least 6 hours on that day, like 2 or at least 1 hour the day before. And it was like, I felt so emotionally drained by the situation. I felt trapped because I wasn't the one that drove us. And, all of this stuff, like I felt like if I had my car, I probably would have been like, all right, I gotta go. Like that's how I would have, after a certain point, but I didn't feel like I could do that. But kind of getting away from that situation because again, there's other factors that we can't necessarily say are just ENFP, INFJ thing. I would say in dating, I've definitely been on dates with ENFP guys before, and I have one example in mind that actually happened a few times with this person, which we became more like friends more than anything. I think he wanted to be in a relationship more than I did. Well, definitely, I at a certain point, basically from the beginning, I was like, I'm not attracted to this person, or I don't really, I like them as a person, but not in that way. Basically our first date, like we were at this like bar and we were talking and having like a really good time because I tend to get along really well with ENFPs one-on-one. But then someone else, he actually played like an instrument and he was in a band and he saw someone that he knew and they came over and it was like almost like we were on this date and he's talking to this other person and it was almost like this.
And you're like, hi, I was here.
Not even trying to include me in the conversation, but he obviously did not see it that way. He wasn't like thinking, oh, let me like be malicious or something. I mean, I didn't see it like that, but I was just like, okay, we're on a date.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just interesting. And also I've had this experience with ENFPs where after the date, he was walking me back to my car and he just basically just went in for the kiss and I'm like, no, like this is like
makes you feel used, right? Like you feel kind of used by that. Like, oh, like you didn't even pay attention to me and like now what? Like there was an emotional exchange. And I feel like NFJs don't like it when I describe it this way, but I do like to say that like FE is all about being emotionally efficient and getting emotional results just as much as TE is about getting like logical results. So I think that like, it's kind of like if you don't do your job, you get fired. If you don't like pay up emotionally and like exchange with someone, you don't get the reward. And what I've been told is it seems like FI users want the reward without doing the work, just as how TI users can be like, oh, if I don't tell my boss what I'm doing, they can't just trust me. It's like, no, you have to tell your boss. And so FI, it's like you have to communicate like with other people instead of saying like one thing, thinking that they'll have the TEFI to like be like, oh yeah, because I like, it's like T and FI communicates very implicitly and with few words with each other. Like I'll be like, oh, look at that thing over there, to like a fellow NFP, and they'll be like, yeah. And then like that's it. And people are like, what do you mean? What were you trying to say?
Oh
but
my gosh. Okay, this is not
before.
I do believe my sister is an ISTJ in Myers-Briggs. And actually what you just described is how my sister and I are. Like, so my sister is the same way. She would be able to like figure out like what you're saying, like you pointed something out, she would know exactly like, oh. Whereas with me, like my sister has literally called me out for like her being like trying to be like sneaky, or not sneaky, like do it like very like in a way that's I don't know what's the word,
Covert.
yeah, overt, yeah. And I would be like, what are you doing? Like, I'll be like that, and she's like, oh, Emily, I'm trying to like tell you something. But it's
yeah, it's so funny because I just try to communicate with the least amount of info as possible. And when users are like, I get so mad sometimes, and they'll be like, never mind. Like that was kind of rude, and I'm like, like it's so funny. And I also think one big thing is like an FE user, if they're sad, if an FE user is sad, I actually like I said, won't try as hard to validate them sometimes. If I like just don't know what to say, I'll be like, okay, I'm sorry you feel that way. And they'll be like, why aren't you emotionally curious about me? And I'm like, curious about what? And so I don't like say the things that they might be feeling, because a lot of NFJs say that like when I'm present, I make them realize like so many things about their emotions. But if I'm not present and really impatient, they'll feel so shut down and sad, and it's like very either or. And it's like funny because when I go, oh, you must feel blah blah blah, like I feel blah blah blah, they get validated, and they also are like, oh, I've never heard it put that way, because I forget that they don't have TE to like just concisely know what their feelings are and just sit there and not need to tell anyone. So it's like, yeah, it's interesting because I would say that when NFPs are going on and on and on about anything, they're not actually talking about their emotions. They're reacting to their emotions, and they're trying to logically piece together what they're thinking. But an NFJ would have trouble with their emotions, but not their logic. So they're trying to validate the emotion when really it's a logic. So with me and my NFJ friends, what I found has helped is it's like, it sounds like you're thinking blah, blah, blah or something. And I'm like, oh, maybe I am thinking this way. It's like this limiting belief thing, as opposed to you must be feeling blah, blah. I'm like, I know I feel blah, blah, blah. Right. And so, yeah, but I think that's the difference actually. It's like very subtle because thoughts and feelings can seem kind of similar, but like when I'm upset, what I want to hear is how I should think about it. Like what framework I should be using to understand what's going on, as opposed to I just want to vent to feel better. It's more like I want someone to like logically give it to me straight about like what my thoughts are. Like it's like, oh, like this person abandoned me, blah blah blah, like they must hate me. And then an NFJ who actually was helping me would be like, do you think that people abandon people for no reason? And I'm like, yeah, wait, I didn't even know I thought that. Like it's like so different. So I don't know if you have ever thought that before about what is an NFP looking for when they're going on and on? It's actually logical validation, not emotional validation.
I think you're right about that. And that could be like a bit where some of the abrasion comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Because to me, like I can definitely see logically, like when you say abandon, I can see why people, like, for example, I saw her perspective, like when we think about like that not party, but like my, old friend with the concert, then afterwards, like when we were at the bars and stuff, I can see it from her perspective, the other people's perspective as well, my perspective, everyone's perspective there. And she doesn't necessarily see that. She's very much like, I feel like the like blinders are just on with her FI, and that's all she wants to see. And, maybe I should have been more like blunt about things. which I was blunt in a way, but it was like, again, there's other factors involved, so I can't really say that she's the best example of that, because I have been more blunt with other ENFPs, and they have taken it more like, oh wow, I'm glad you said this to me, in a way.
Yeah, it like depends on how fragile your thought process is, because what I will say is that like okay, like I have like 4 ENFJ best friends right now, and like 3 INFJ good friends, and an INFJ boss, and you I'm collaborating with. So I'm just surrounded by them. But I wasn't always good at navigating FE and TI, because people were like, it's so weird to me, Crystal, how you can have both so much self-love but also so much self-loathing and like lack of self-respect. And I thought that was a huge differentiation, because it's like this idea that like my thoughts would be so volatile even though my emotions would be pretty consistent. Like, I like this person, but how I'm going to treat them is not like logically the same all the time. TI, I think, even when I feel bad, I'm still going to treat someone this way.
Yes.
And stuff like that. So that's like TI. But for me, it's like how I feel has no bearing on how I treat the other person, in a sense. Like, it's not logically convicted or rooted. So I think that because I grew up like feeling very like left out by people, and like no one liked me, and feeling like all my efforts to make friends were like not reciprocated because I couldn't tell like what was real to people and what was not and stuff, I just like had a lot of like limiting beliefs about like my impact on people. Like, I really would think that everyone was just, playing with me or like teasing me, and like genuinely would like just give up on me just to like get a rise out of me. Like, I just thought the world was out to get me. And like, that's like logically, I would, how it's like, I've also been told by FE that they can't help but think that FI is very, like you said, selfish. And selfish is like another synonym for feeling like they're a victim all the time. So victims can be like selfish in a sense if they're overly dramatic like that. I did feel like the world was out to get me, and I was both lucky but also extremely unlucky, kind of almost cursed. And this is like a recurring theme where I think a lot of NFJs don't feel like victims. They feel like, I have this stuff in my control, and I'm gonna use my free will and my control to create the life that I want. And NFPs are like, that's like overly optimistic and unrealistic. And NFJs are like, why are you so disempowered to not believe in your own worth and your ability to impact people? And this is not like a real life conversation. This is like kind of how I see the two philosophies of the NFs kind of clashing, because I think that NFPs I really do think, and it's hard for me to not think this way, I feel like things happen to me more than I make things happen. And I've kind of seen that NFJs try to tend to make things happen than just be super focused on, oh, what's impacting me, what's happening to me. Like, I was just like, life's just something that happens to me. Like, does that make sense?
Oh, yes, it does. Okay, so I have 2 like takeaways from this. First of all, I think ENFPs are really good at finessing situations.
Oh yeah, for sure. Once we know that they're real, we are good at finessing them. But we first have to know what they are. So yeah.
Oh yeah, and it's like almost like the whole philosophy of things happen to you, like almost like you finesse things, maybe not even in your sense of like realizing that you're doing, or like you do like try to do it, but like it's not necessarily like, I just seen ENFPs finesse situations so often that it's like interesting. But for me, I do see like the world as things I have to like inflict change on my life versus life inflicts change on me, even though I have seen it where, life has inflicted change on me. Like, I feel like this pandemic is a really good situation where it did inflict me rather than me inflicting it.
Yeah, and see, I was like so chill. Like, I don't say the pandemic is something I'm like grateful for, angry about, or anything. I'm just like, it just be like that sometimes. Like, my signature catchphrase is, it just be like that sometimes for everything, even good things. I'm like, yay, I'm so happy. I guess it really do be like that sometimes.
I've literally heard ENFP say that phrase like so many times.
No, because to us, it literally feels like it just be like that, and we have no control. Like, we're hands off. Like, so many SEs are like, what does that mean? Are you just saying, so life is? Like, what? And I'm like, exactly. And they're like, So yeah.
Like for me, I just feel like, yeah, I guess I just do have a more strategic way of like going through through my life. Like I just feel like, oh, I'm doing this. Certain things do happen. Like for example, you can't always control everything. And I would say that, correct me if I'm wrong, I would say that this actually is one of the pitfalls of like maybe an NFJ, is that they're seen as controlling.
That's so true. Wait, that's so true. They are controlling. I think it's cute now because, like, I do think that it's very empowering if done right. But I think that the user manual for an NFP NFJ relationship is like, be prepared to notice the ways this person is controlling that you're not. Because I do think
you're gonna see even as manipulative too.
Yeah, exactly. And here's the thing, like NFJs aren't literally consciously manipulative because that would require them to like logically understand their impact, but they do try to manipulate every situation in their favor in life. So it's just like their mentality of like making the most of life, maximizing things and going towards a goal. Like it has nothing to do with like, I'm gonna like fucking puppet this person or something. And NFPs are like, I am, what is that thing? Like a ping ball or a pinball, and I get to control like maybe the little slats of my life, but my trajectory is totally out of my control. NFJs are definitely not that way. They're like, I'm steering this freaking car and the highway can like freaking you know, twist and turn, but I'm steering the car. And I'm like, I will try to change the roads, not the steering of the car itself or something. If that makes sense.
That's so interesting. Yeah, and that gets into NI and NE too. But also I would say, so I've firsthand witnessed this, like especially working with ENFPs that I'm like friends with. I would say friends is the key word, because I think if you're not friends with an ENFP, or at least like, okay, coming into a situation already being friends with the person you work with, and it's an INFP, ENFP. From that one person that I talked about, but also from one of my friends, Earl, who he's an ENFP. I worked with him at Starbucks like a few times, and it was like a similar like essence of like, there's a very different Emily that you're gonna see in the personal life and professional life.
Yeah.
NFJs are really good at being professional and like turning it on, like turning on this other side, whereas ENFPs want to be the same. Like maybe you're more self-aware in the sense of like wanting to be more professional, but like from my experience, and he was obviously professional as well because he was actually a shift supervisor, but I found that when I was at work, he was like a bit taken aback that I was like just, you know, treating everybody the same in a sense. And I got this from other ENFPs as well, that I was just like being work Emily, where I'm going to treat everybody the same and like be nice to people. And obviously I'm friends with him, but like, I'm just going to be like this work Emily that's, I don't know how to describe it, but I'm like I have work mode on. I'm not like trying to be whatever way. I'm not going to like single people out friends wise and just be like, oh, you're my friend and I'm going to talk to you and stuff. I'm going to be professional. I'm going to try to have a good relationship with my manager, stuff like that. And I've seen it from other people, not him necessarily, but other people are like, I got close to one of our managers, and not in like a weird way or something, but just like me actually talking to this person and just being friendly. This girl was like, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to get a better area? Are you trying to like,
are you trying to advance in your career? And you're like,
no, it's not even that serious. I'm literally just trying to talk, you know, and be nice. Yeah, I do see the value.
It's like it's not that you're like, no, like I'm anti-advancing in my career, but it's like, that's not my only objective. I just also genuinely enjoy connecting with people. Like, is that so weird?
I generally like people. And that's something that can be, and I think ENFPs generally like people too, but it's a different situation because I think ENFPs are very much like, especially in a new environment, they're like, okay, I want to be close to this person. Or like, maybe you're just like, you may be more, just like anybody, you're like more, you get along with certain people more than others and certain people interest you more. And I have seen it with ENFPs where they'll be very like specific with who they're like close to, whereas with me I'll be like, I'm not gonna like tell people my personal life at work, but I'll be like, oh, well, you know, cool. Let me ask you about your day and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I do think that like FE can have multiple objectives and intentions and like connecting with someone, but it doesn't have to be one specific one. And I think that for me, tend to have a very specific, narrow purpose when I talk to someone. Like I know what I'm trying to get out of it.
Mm. So I think there actually, with the miscommunication here, especially, is there might be a bit of projection happening.
Yeah, for sure.
Like,
Yeah, because it's like I'm like, oh, if I were acting like that, this is what I'd be thinking.
yes.
But that's not how,
It
you know,
isn't.
because cognitive functions are different. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that a lot of people who don't even know what like cognitive functions are would just look at the similarities of NFs being really friendly and stuff. And like, yeah, like I think so many like FE users would just really like me, but also really not like me because they would assume I had more TI than I did, and I would assume they had more TE than they did, when really it's just like huge miscommunications can happen like all the time. Yeah. So Emily, we've been talking for like an hour and a half, basically.
What?
I know. Do you want to maybe continue this conversation and like have a series, or maybe stop here for now?
I think what would be cool, anybody that's watching, I would say even propose questions or even situations that you guys want us to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah, I am all for, you know, a lot of people here know me from Megan's channel, but as you can see, I have no discrimination in where I pop up because I've been on other people's channels, and now I'm kind of trying to like build my own, plug myself real fast. I'm trying to build my own kind of like talking about ENFPs in an unconventional, new, fresh way, because I do think that, like, for example, the points today about logical validation, this is stuff where I've just seen so many people have issues with NFPs, from fellow NFJs who even have been reluctant to get close to me because they've been so hurt. But after like finding out about type, they feel set free. I really want to bring more light to, if you're like an NFP stuck in your life, why, and if you're an NFJ stuck, like how that's different than NFPs. I think that uncovering our differences and really letting people know that it's not a natural fit, but there's so much power once we really get on the same page is really important. So yeah.
Yes. Yeah, definitely subscribe to Crystal's channel. I'll have her channel linked below. And also, yeah, send any kind of questions and stuff. I would say the best way like to reach both of us would be either through Instagram or in the comments. I would say mostly the comments of this video. And I definitely think that we will like start a series, and potentially I'll even go on her channel at some point.
Exactly. Once my channel grows. Yeah, my latest video was how to understand your confusing ENFP crush. Anyone that came to this video because they were confused by ENFPs can go and watch that video to really, because I really try to be objective and peer into my own head. And the reason I think I can get along with so many NFJs is because being best friends with Megan, shout out, has really refined my perception of what my problems actually are and what they aren't. And so I think I have a balanced understanding. So yeah, like anyone can DM me on Instagram. We'll have that link below, and I will talk to you soon, Emily.
All right. And Fleur wanted to see us. So this
Oh,
is
hello. Oh my God. So cute.
She is a cute little girl. But yeah, we will see you guys later. And again, let us know what you want to see next from us. And yeah, have a good day.
Yay.
Okay. Oh, wait, how do I stop recording?